Hello Aces! It is time for the final playthrough. Actually my first Let's Play series on Ace Combat Infinity with commentary, because I asked on a poll on the community tab on YouTube asking which game you guys wanted me to do a playthrough, and most of you answered Ace Combat Infinity, which makes a lot of sense because Ace Combat Infinity servers are going to be shut down March 31st of 2018, so it's good to have the playthrough done so we can discuss the game before it dies, basically, because after the servers are shut down, obviously you won't be able to play the multiplayer or even the offline campaign because you gotta be connected to the servers to even just access the game by itself, which it's kind of sad, but it was a free-to-play game. It is gonna die. However, this is not gonna be the Let's Play series you're expecting. No. Once you're done finishing this series, you're gonna be smarter. You're gonna increase your levels of intelligence, of your IQ. Your brain is going to grow. Why? Because I'm gonna go down on the references of Ace Combat Infinity, everything that was talked before or not. And this is gonna be good for the new players, because if you don't understand the game or you're gonna understand the references, and for the hardcore fans, because I'm very sure you're gonna at least learn something new. So let's start with the campaign. The first mission, Lost Butterfly. I'm gonna play the cutscene and then the briefing, and then after we do a discussion. And if you haven't seen, you get to see, and if you've seen in a long time, it's a refresher for you. Let's do this.
It'll be 20 years to the day soon. The day the sky was ripped apart and countless bolts of light rained down upon us. I think this calls for a little history lesson. In 1994, a group of asteroids was discovered taking a long elliptical orbit around the Sun. They were created when an unknown asteroid struck the 1986 VG-1 Ulysses, an asteroid in orbit around Jupiter. The orbit of these Ulysses asteroids was on a collision course with Earth, with an estimated 10,000 meteors set to strike the surface. Since there was no way to divert the orbit of each asteroid, construction began on a vast anti-air railgun network, a last-ditch effort to intercept and destroy the meteors. They built 6 facilities. The test unit Type 0 was built in China. Type 1 was built in America, and then 4 Type 5 units were built in Australia, Turkey, Namibia, and Argentina. In July 1999, the asteroids began to strike. Thanks to the railgun network, damage was kept to a bare minimum, only about enough to destroy the entire world order. Never in its existence had mankind experienced such a catastrophe. It came to be called the Ulysses Disaster. The near-total loss of infrastructure led to economic chaos, particularly in the hard-hit Eurasian continent. To avoid total breakdown, the nations of Asia and Southern Europe rearranged themselves into regional federations. Military budgets were slashed, and the Federation poured most of their money into rebuilding. The depletion of energy sources brought on by the loss of territory soon proved to be a major problem, one that quickly led to an escalation in disputes over natural resources. We'll continue this later.
By the way, I love the style in the cutscenes of Ace Combat Infinity. It's pretty cool. So let's go now for the briefing.
Alright, time to start the briefing. We've got a new guy here today, but I'll have to cut the introduction short. My name's Goodfellow, and I'm your rep from the Arrows. As you know, Arrows is a mercenary force specializing in aerial warfare. Some people like to call us pirates. I prefer they'd call us privateers, at least. We are being employed by the UN Security Council, after all. Anyway, the UNSC's Military Staff Committee just sent Arrows a request for deployment. It was originally going to be an escort mission for the UNF Pacific Fleet stationed in Tokyo Bay, but that's changed. We now have multiple unknown UAVs flying toward Area J4E, Japan's former capital of Tokyo. In other words, right here. The UAVs are likely armed. We need them downed before they reach city limits. This will be the first sortie for the rookie here. TAC name, Reaper. Here's your emblem. Omega from the Bone Arrow Flight will be supporting you on this mission. Follow his instructions. I'll be expecting results, you hear? Dismissed.
Thank you, good fellow, for your briefing. That was very cool. Of course, Ace Combat briefings. But now, time for discussion. So it all begins when Earth detected the asteroid Ulysses coming, to hit the planet and all of its fragments. That's a reference to many Ace Combat games, but most importantly Ace Combat 4 for the PlayStation 2, where they also talked about the Ulysses. But there's a difference between the Ulysses falling on Earth or Stranger, which is the fictional Ace Combat universe. Usually, asteroids are named by the year that they are discovered. In the Stranger universe, it was discovered in 1994, and apparently in the real-life universe, Earth's universe, it was discovered in 1986. Therefore, there was a lot more time for Earth to get prepared before the fragments of the asteroid reached the planet. That's why there were 6 giant railguns constructed to intercept the asteroid. Unlike in Stranger, there was, I think, basically 2 of them, and they barely got done in time. So that's the thing. And these asteroids, they were just massive. There were so many of them. Do you know how many of them there were?
Over 9,000!
Exactly, over 9,000. They should have totally written that in the subtitles. But yeah, actually 10,000, over 10,000. So lots of meteors. And you might have seen in the little cutscene there, the OBC. That's a reference to many Ace Combat games, like for example Ace Combat 5, Ace Combat 0, and now in the Ace Combat 7 trailer, you can see it on the trailer, it refers to the Ocean Broadcasting Company or Corporation, which is basically the Stranger equivalent of the BBC, but for the Federation of Oceania, which is one of the countries there. Now, there's this map now that you see, and here's the question I want to ask you. Would you have survived if Ulysses fell on Earth at 1999 or today? So, looking at the top left of the map, we have Canada mostly. It's okay. It would be good for me. I would be alive if it fell today. But if you're in California, you're dead. If you're in Colombia, around there, you're dead. Some parts of Brazil, you'd be dead. Southern Italy, you're pretty much dead. In Western Europe, it was bad. And the Philippines and Eastern Australia, that was very bad. However, one important thing to mention is that many of these fragments fell on the ocean. So maybe there were tsunamis that killed a bunch of more people. I'm just not sure. But let me know in the comments if you would be alive if it fell today or in 1999 when it actually fell. For me, I would be safe. Good for me. Another important thing is that we have this graph. It shows the budget. But the thing that I thought interesting about the narrator speaking is that it doesn't mention which country it refers to. There were many countries after the Ulysses Disaster that they reformed into regional federations, and changes in territories were fairly common after the impact of the asteroid. But the graph doesn't talk about which country it was. It, I suppose, is of one of the Asian countries. But the interesting thing is that he mentions that the revival budget went to 58%, which is actually a lot. A lot of your budget going towards reconstruction after the Ulysses Disaster, which you get the idea of how massive the thing was. And then it shows that the military budget went to 3%. Here's the thing though, 3% is actually a normal level of military budget. The United States, for example, with the largest military budget in the world, is 3% of the GDP. Not the total budget, but the GDP. And another interesting thing is that before the Ulysses impact, about 60% of the total budget for this unknown nation went to the military. Were they preparing before the Ulysses disaster? I don't know. Looks like they were. If you can see it's divided into Army with the green color, the Air Force with the yellow color, and the Navy with the blue color on the graph there. And so that is that. And now let's talk about the briefing. You know, in the briefing, it has the arrows, which is a PMC, private military company or contractor, basically mercenaries, because after the fall of Ulysses, with this reorganization of the world, there were plenty of opportunities for you to be a mercenary. But it's a good thing for the free market. And the arrow symbol is actually a reference to the ISAF, which was this military coalition from Ace Combat 4. It had like 3 little arrows, and that's the... It was actually not the army of a specific country, but it was rather a military coalition. It was very important in Ace Combat 4. And also, Reaper, it is a reference to Mobius 1, the protagonist of Ace Combat 4, because they shared the same nickname. In Ace Combat Infinity, our protagonist is called Reaper. In Ace Combat 4, Mobius 1 had the nickname the Grim Reaper. And so, let's go now for the mission. And one of the things I wanted to go is I'm gonna go with the standard aircraft, the standard slot. You can change. You could go for with the Shinden, which I'm gonna talk about in the future. But let's go with the F4. You can see there are very few parts, and the total cost is 442, which means it sucks. But we'll go with it anyway. So let's do that. And by the way, I'm gonna try to avoid as much as possible doing spoilers for the new people. But we're gonna talk about some stuff that's gonna make you think, or maybe stuff that you never noticed before. Also, another important thing I forgot to mention.
A lot of meteor dust in the air again today. Hard to believe it's already been 20 years, huh? And the sky's still full of that junk.
20 years, 20 good years, yes.
This is the JASD.
One thing I forgot to mention is that the name of this operation, which was covered with my webcam during the briefing, is called Gambit, which is a reference to Ace Combat 2. There was a mission called Gambit, and Gambit actually refers to a chess strategy, or the opening moves in the chess game. So very intellectual reference. See, you're getting the culture. Although actually, if you're gonna go really deep, Gambit means you are trading some of your chess pieces so you can get a better position later on. Doesn't make too much sense in this mission from my perspective, but that's a reference, the culture. And it's also mentioned that the asteroid, or this mission, takes place in Tokyo, obviously, but Tokyo is not the capital of Japan anymore after the fall of the Ulysses Disaster. Which is the capital of Japan? I have no idea. Maybe Osaka or Kyoto, I don't know. Now, one thing we have to notice here in Tokyo is this huge crater. That is a reference to Ace Combat 4, the very first mission. This mission in Ace Combat Infinity is almost like the first mission in Ace Combat 4. The plane is the same, which is the F4, the default plane. The music is the same, the soundtrack, Sitting Duck. And the objective is basically the same, just to intercept units, basically. Now, calm down, good fellow. I got time. I got like 18 minutes. Chill, man. So let's talk about the crater. This is not the only crater that there is in Tokyo. There are smaller ones. There's one back there, another one there. So there was not just one. But this one, the large one, it also is a reference for the very first mission of Ace Combat 4, which had the New Field Crater, it's the name of the island, which is filled with water. So lots of resemblance. But do you know how big this crater is? I know. And I'll tell you how big it is because I measured. This crater is of 3,370 meters in diameter. It's pretty big. So I went actually online to see if I could calculate the size of the asteroid that would make a crater of this size. But I couldn't because asteroids, they have different densities, so that affects the size of the craters that they give. Now that I mentioned that, let's go for a city tour on Tokyo by ACF. Now you can see there are lots of craters here in the northern part of the crater, which you can actually see on the radar screen on the map. It's pretty massive, over 3 kilometers. You can see that in the northern part they are rebuilding. You see lots of buildings with cranes, so they're building and people are enjoying their time. But one important reference Sure, Omega, okay. One important reference in Tokyo. It's this building right here! Right in front of me! That is where Ace Combat was made. That's the Bandai headquarters in Tokyo. Yeah, which is almost like a very iconic triangular building, almost. Which was also featured as an Easter egg in Ace Combat 6 Fires of Liberation, which takes place in the fictional Ace Combat world. I know what I'm doing, Omega, okay? So, here's the thing though, it's kind of sad because this building does not exist anymore. You can actually see the logo here, the Bandai logo. It was there on the side. This building doesn't exist anymore because it was destroyed to make room for some apartments and housings. But they moved their headquarters to yet another building in Tokyo, which is actually close by. In the Shinagawa area, which is where that large crater is. In real life, the new Bandai headquarters is this building right here. Although it's not modeled as it is in the game, it looks different in real life, but it's there. There you go, you're getting a tour of Tokyo with ACF by plane. Everything is close by if you do by plane, even Tokyo Tower. Yay! Okay, now let's stop messing around with the references. Let's go after some UAVs. These are the regular size UAVs. They're pretty weak. This mission is basically a tutorial for the new players. I've enjoyed that they did that in this game because in Ace Combat 6, the tutorial was after the first mission. But how you do the tutorial if people can't even pass the mission? It's not possible. I am Omega. Now, important thing is in this mission, go slow. Don't go too fast, otherwise you're gonna miss content, which I'm gonna show you. There you go, got one. And I myself, I really like the machine gun. I love it. See? Definitely a tutorial mission. Yes, good fellow. I know. Now here's the real thing. Of course! This is a regular UAV. We don't need to care. This is the cool one. That's the Quacks! They're gonna talk in the radio. It's a very important for the story of the game, this UAV. It is! It is a Quacks! Look at that! I like how he's totally not firing at me. So here's the thing. The Quacks is very important if you read Icarus in the Sky. It's an Ace Combat novel. It was a drone being developed. Listen, it's important.
Dad, a lot of noise around here.
Did you hear that? That's very important. Is he gonna do it again? The humming? Maybe. It's very important. I'm not gonna spoil though for the new people. Okay, now the story about the Quacks. The Quacks is a Japanese-made and Japanese-developed UAV. It's very agile. It's stealthy. And it was developed together with the ASFX Shinden, which is another Japanese plane you're gonna see later in the game. It's this one right there. They're very important in the Ace Combat novel, the book. They actually have an Ace Combat book. And to my knowledge, this UAV, they also tried exporting into the United States. Yay! Of course, there's more! Finally, they tried to attack the city. And now they're attacking the Allied fleet, who has like only 3 ships. I am Omega.
Starboard side.
And he's dead.
Missile away. Damn it. No flag grabbed. Who the hell are they?
Who are they? We're gonna find out in the next mission. Don't want to spoil again. And there's actually more stuff that I want to talk about Tokyo, but I'll do that when we come back to Tokyo later in the game.
Butterflies.
Butterflies. Very important. Then again, you're gonna find out. Also, if you have heard about the butterfly effect, that's kind of important in this game as well. So I'll talk about Tokyo next time when we come back in the other mission. There's actually some really stuff I'm really excited to talk about, but not all of it is family friendly here, so I'm not sure how that's gonna work out with YouTube.
Thanks for your support.
Another part, second part of the tour on Tokyo.
Latest damage report now. Looks like they didn't reach the evacuation zones. Not too shabby, Reaper. These things, Quark's craft, you said? Why would they be striking Tokyo? I'll get the UNF to brief me on the UAVs later. All units, clear to return home.
Return home. There you go. You always turn left. It doesn't matter what heading you're going. I've always found that interesting.
This is believed to be a terrorist attack carried out by armed forces from the Ulysses region. It caused extensive damage to Tokyo. The naval fleet was also attacked, so the UNF generals are all furious right now. The UAVs they used are an upgraded version of the MQ-90 Quads, a Japanese-made UAV that's also been deployed in the Americas. It may be unmanned, but it's still a very powerful bomber. It's equipped with an aggressive aerodynamic design and a new type of semi-automatic control system. The UNSC says it's a Werner NOAA product. Apparently the control system's a top-secret design that they stole. Werner denies everything, of course. Navigation would normally use a system that relies on improved GPS satellite tech. This craft uses a different relay system for its operations. We also caught an unknown fighter craft flying at high altitude over the area. The UN's going to raid and inspect Werner's facilities in Ulysses and the other special zones shortly. Werner NOAA is the biggest company in its field. Normally, the UN doesn't like doing anything to make them angry. Now, though, I guess they don't have much choice.
What is Yuli? What is Werner's NOAA? And what the heck was that unidentified high-altitude aircraft? Well, you're gonna find out later in the game. I don't want to spoil it now. In the next mission, you're gonna see about that. But just as a recap, I told you it was important to listen to that part, which had a humming that went like this. This, as you're gonna see later in the game, is important. But this is a reference to the game Mappy. It's a old Namco game, well, actually really old. And it's just basically the same theme song. Very important again, you're gonna see in this game. But this is the end of this very first episode of this Let's Play and Explain Ace Combat Infinity. Don't you feel smarter now? Your brain is growing inside with all the references. And more questions, more discussions will follow on the next video, which you can check the playthrough right here. There you go. So thank you for watching, guys, and see you next time.